Sarah,
They said everything comes through us.
are we streaming? I pressed the stream button.
Other than that, we clear.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can confirm that we are streaming and recording again. I do have a motion being put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council reconvene the regular meeting and that Council adjourn the in-camera session and that Council do now rise with no report. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Okay, any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do understand that we're having a quick 5-minute recess and then
Yes.
get back into the agenda. Thank you.
Residents, just bear with us 5 more minutes. We're just going to have a quick recess. Your patience has been appreciated.
You had your chance. That's this weekend. I'm probably-
My ward again, my ward again. Well, the other,
Well, that's true. That's true.
And if the one that said super loud, the microphone won't.
Okay, are you okay if I start the streaming? Okay.
this isn't for me.
Members of council, we're just starting our streaming. I will let you know when we are live. Thank you.
Excellent. And before that does come up, my apologies to the residents.
Good, okay.
We usually do the in-camera at the end of the meeting after the majority of our business has been dealt with. We had to go on camera to discuss a motion that we will now be discussing. Rest assured that we had a very lively discussion on this motion, and that will be next on the agenda. Again, apologize for the delay in the business, and thank you for those of you that did stay around. Thank you for your patience. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion on the floor under the motions and notices of motion being brought forward by the Deputy Mayor Wink and with Councillor Kerr as the seconder. And this is regarding cannabis odor threshold. Deputy Mayor Wink, did you wish to read this into the record?
Yes, thank you. So whereas on March 23rd, 2020, council enacted an odorous industries nuisance bylaw that sets an odor threshold based on known industry standards for acceptable odor levels in the town of Pelham. And whereas the community has expressed its dissatisfaction with odor emissions from local cannabis facilities, indicating that current measures may be inadequate. And whereas Town of Pelham Council recognizes the challenge of balancing industrial growth and the quality of life and well-being of the community, now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to prepare a comprehensive report reviewing the current threshold for odor levels as stipulated in the Odorous Industries Nuisance Bylaw 4202, enacted in 2020. And that the report further examine existing odor testing data and provide recommendations for revised odor limits that align more closely with community expectations while respecting industry standards. And that as part of the review, staff be directed to consult with the town's odor expert and obtain professional insights and recommendations on appropriate odor thresholds, and that staff present their findings and recommendations to council on September 18th, 2024 for consideration and potential amendment of the bylaw.
To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would be to council for discussion.
Okay, thank you. So first, one of the amendments I see, Councillor, is the September 18th is to be amended.
Yes, so like to probably do some friendly amendments to the motion. Firstly, with respect to the technology, we would like to add to it looking at other options for enforcement technology to ensure that the nasal ranger is the technology that would be sufficient for our needs. Like to also add in the friendly amendment, maintain the existing bylaw, but look at the reduction of the threshold. That, in other words, we're not rewriting the bylaw with the exception of the thresholds. The September 18th date be moved to October 16th to allow staff and experts some time, and to look at penalties for the infractions to be done on so Councilor Eckert, help me with the legal progressive penalties using the AMP system.
Thank you. Those changes you caught, Madam Clerk?
Yes, I'm just adding these. We have to investigate, that staff are also directed to further investigate the enforcement technologies that can be used to detect odor and report back to council. We have a section with respect to the progressive penalties with respect to odor, and to maintain the existing bylaw by examining the odor threshold and then changing the date from September 18th to October 16th.
Yes.
And if all of council is happy and satisfied with that, then no formal amendments wouldn't be needed. It would just be a friendly amendment. Is that acceptable to council?
Yes, that appears to be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Therefore, the motion on the floor with those amendments is now for debate.
Okay, thank you. On the motion, on the amended motion, questions or comments? And we'll go to the mover, Deputy Mayor Wink.
So just to make some comments, council understands the predicament that the residents have been put in. I see shaking heads. I'm sorry about that, Ms. Delaney, but the current situation is unacceptable. I feel for the residents. We hear you loud and clear that changes have to be made. We've spent over $400,000 in legal fees getting to where we are today, and in all honesty, if challenged, we'll be spending an awful lot more. So taxpayers beware that there's going to be some additional costs involved to potentially litigate this. We are prepared to do that. We are prepared to look at amending thresholds. And we've heard you loud and clear. And some of us live in areas that are affected. I'm not quite as affected as someone like Mr. Brule, who's just around the corner. But it's unacceptable. We're here to do something about it. We've heard you loud and clear, and we will do something. So you've got our commitment on that.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Kerr, you seconded the motion. Would you also like to speak to it?
Yes, I think it's critical to realize what we're trying to do is beef up the bylaws that we have, yet recognize that, and despite the probably looks of some, we still have to make it legally enforceable. And that's the double edge of the sword, is that you put something together, you put it into the courts, and if it's deemed legally unenforceable, that's what it is. So we do the best we can to get something in a position that reflects the community standards, hopefully, and meet legal standards at the same time. That's sometimes, as we've all admitted, sometimes there's judgments made legally that we don't like, but we still have to put this forward, and we have to get it to the best position we can, and to do it at a point where it's there. The additional parts, I concur with the friendly amendment by Deputy Mayor Wink at looking at potential new technology that may exist or enhancements. As I mentioned kind of before, I'm a bit of a science nerd who has a tendency to realize that technology is changing dramatically and quickly, so sometimes the equipment we had in the past may not be as good as maybe what's available now, potentially. So that's part of why we're asking staff to further investigate what additional technologies might be out there. Maybe we're relying on old stuff that maybe there's a shiny newer model that actually works better, and that's our hope, because that's the idea, is to try and get it to that point. So I'm fully supportive of this, as Deputy Mayor has talked about, the timelines to give staff and others to assist with that. You may think we're blowing it into the future by adding a month to the date, but if you don't do your due diligence in time and you put too onerous a short-term date on it, sometimes you just force something that you wish, geez, if I had another 4 weeks, we can be a little bit more assured that we're going to get where we're supposed to be. At this point, the idea is to do it, to recognize the citizens' desires, our desires, everybody in this municipality's desires to come up with something that's good, that's as good as we possibly can get, and have it balanced at the same time. We have to recognize that. So I'm in support because I think there's enough direction to staff in consultations that'll do that.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank both of you for bringing this motion before council. Comments? Brian Eckert, or Councilor Eckert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to echo and add to Councilor Kerr and Councilor Wink's comments, I would like to thank the citizens of Pelham and our adopted resident of Pelham, Mr. Brule. One issue that he stated on about the question about will you be willing to go to court? I can tell you in my former life that nothing will make our case stronger than having citizens come forward willing to step up in court and say, it drove me out of my backyard. It stinks. It happens all the time. We can't do it alone. Bylaw can't do it alone. We've listened to you. We're responding. Now we need you to continue to help us to enforce this new law, whatever it is we come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nesnick?
Once again, Councillor Eckert stole my thunder, but he is correct. Yes, I would concur with him as well. And I think extending the date into October will give our expert time to provide us some new options, hopefully, as well as give us a comprehensive report, as well as our legal team to come up with a bylaw and bylaw to provide us with the data that we need in order to make a better decision. I'd like to thank our previous council for starting this ball rolling in collaboration with the Cannabis Control Committee, because we are forging ahead in new waters, and this is unprecedented in Ontario. Ms. Sturton said that there is no current other municipalities leading the way we are. So congratulations to our former council for starting the ball rolling. Was it perfect? Maybe not, but we now are going to grow on that and make it much more enforceable, much more aggressive in terms of our expectations of the community and the businesses that are in town. And we want to be good business or good neighbors with them as well, because we do realize that they do promote employment and that sort of thing in our community. But in response, we expect them to be our good neighbor as well. And so by putting a bylaw in place with teeth might take a couple extra weeks, but we are going to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The extension may be bothering some residents, but I want to assure you, I got an email from our odor expert this morning, and he did request a deadline extension to mid-October at the minimum. And his quoting him, he says, in my opinion, we should take time to review other existing nuisance bylaws and considering the best attributes, provide Pelham residents with the best protection policies for enforcement. So we're doing this in consultation with our expert as well. And that's the basis for the council decision to extend the date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Hildebrand. Councilor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a good motion, and it'll be a good motion for us, and it'll be a progress. It's got some depth, and it's built upon some very sound thinking and some very sound requirements, and I expect we're going to have a very good report. Also with some depth from our staff, because I think in our odor expert, I think we'll find that that this will advance the whole process of corporate citizenship for the producers and enjoyment for the citizens that they deserve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. In closing, or at least my feelings on this, and obviously I can't tell what was discussed in camera, but I will tell everyone here, all the residents, that everyone on this horseshoe has heard you, and we are, and action will be taken once we get the staff report and get to make sure that our technology is up to date. We're now using technology that is at least, we've had it for 5 years. I believe it's been around, a lot longer than that. there is no doubt better technology that can be even more pinpointing when it comes to location and the amount of. So that is a big part of this, stretching things out to get this report. We'll have that information brought back to council. So, like everyone has said, it didn't happen here today, but the ball, and I realized for the last 3 years, I've been writing out and writing emails and said, hang on, it's a process, we're almost there. Again, this council is asking for your patience. We will get there. The will of this council is to bring a quality of life back to that section of town, and we will get there, I can assure you of that. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If council has no other comments, it would be time for the vote.
Okay, so on the amended motion, first of all, any other comments on the motion? Okay, not seeing any. Calling the vote on the amended motion. All those in favor? And I see none opposed. The motion carries. Again, thank you to the Deputy Mayor and to Councillor Kerr for bringing this motion before council. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion being put forth by Councillor Eckhart, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. 1, RC 12/2024, July 10th, 2024, regular council. Mr. Mayor, I'd ask if there's any errors or omissions.
Okay, thank you. After reviewing the minutes, does any councillor notice any errors or omissions in the minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to our consent agenda. If any councilors wish to lift an item from the consent agenda, now would be the time. I just remind councilors that you don't have to lift to make just comments. It would be if you need an amendment to the motion put forward.
Thank you. Is there any consent agenda item that a councillor wishes to pull? Councillor Hildebrand.
I will be lifting item 12.3.2, Public Works.
Okay, thank you. And of course, when you do get to the one consent agenda, you will have to leave. Okay, thank you. Any other items that council would like to lift? I'm not seeing any. To the clerk.
Thank you. If any councilors have any items they wish to discuss, now would be the time.
Okay, thank you. Any item on and it's quite a long consent agenda. Any items, we'll go with Councillor Olson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to talk about the 12.3.7, the updates on the attendance policy. And my question is for the CAO about the requirement for medical documentation. I see that it says may on there. Is it also is that also in our collective agreement that we may require medical documentation?
Yes, that is correct, Councillor. As an employer, we are now aware that the medical establishment is being strongly dissuaded, I think by the provincial government, but in any event, is far more reluctant to write doctor's notes, frankly, to employers, and it's a higher threshold. So that language simply reflects a pragmatic reality that I think all employers, not just the town of Pelham, have to be far more choosy when we have to increase the threshold at which we're going to ask for that, because you're asking for something with which most staff members cannot comply, barring serious medical injury or medical condition. I think you can get one quite easily for a heart attack, but the threshold has moved, and that's simply by stresses on the medical system. So ergo that language there.
That anticipates and answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other agenda items? if I can pull one, or just discuss one before we get too far down the list, I guess. 12.5.1, green roads. Just a quick question to our Public Works Director, Mr. Marr. This council has expressed a desire to make sure that this town is at the forefront of environmental methods, as it were. Have you, is your department looking at these green roads that St. Catharines is looking at, and will we be thinking of instituting any of these in the coming years?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Personally, I'm not 100% up to speed on this technology.
And I apologize for not.
That's fine. We've
Give the heads up.
discussed this as part of with our engineering group. We are also part of a consortium of public works officials. This will be something I bring up at that meeting as well. We'll let St. Catharines look into this and see what they've come up with. I think they're reporting back to their council in Q3 of this year, Q4 of this year. So something that we'll keep an eye on. As a department here, we always look at innovative ways to resurface and reconstruct our roadways. So that's something that we're always looking into. And this is something that we'll definitely keep an eye on.
Excellent. And then I think it's a great idea to let another municipality lead the way in the region, and we can adopt that sit and wait attitude. Excellent. Thank you. I have to go this side. Anyone on this side? Councilor? No, I have to go back and forth. I'm sorry, Councilor Kerr.
It's to do with a different item, so I can bring that
Okay,
up.
well then I will go back to
back.
Councilor Olson, talking on the same item. Councilor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I asked that this correspondence be included because I watched the presentation on this, and it seemed to me that there was possibilities for pilot projects and things that were raised in the meeting. And I also want to point out, and as Mr. Marr has said, if you look at the documentation around the rebuilding of the roads and things, we're up to date on a lot of things, but they're talking about residents for adhesion promotion and that type of thing, which I think will be useful. So
Excellent.
that's why I pulled that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kerr?
So I can talk about a different item.
Yes.
Just a very quick one. It was under routine correspondence, 12.4.3, Sons and Daughters Request for Support. The only comment I had relative to it is every other winery I've been associated with and actually traveling throughout Niagara as well as the rest of Ontario, the Buy the Glass endorsement is they've been very much immediately adjacent to the production site where the sale is. The size of the property, the vineyard area is actually approximately 1/3 of the area which they're asking for, and it's not even within the sight line of the winery. So as a tourist experience, most cases it's being within the vineyard itself. That's part of the situation. And then there's a substantial portion of the property which is open land along Highway 20, which is not necessarily a tourist experience relative to the vineyard operation itself. So that was, just my concern was the size of it. I understand the rationale behind it and how AGCO came in. One of the dilemmas that has occurred in another municipality has been people with By the Glass wandering throughout vineyards near neighboring properties and resulting in issues with them. And it's been a negative situation. And so I don't have a problem supporting what you're trying to do. It's just the magnitude of the size of the area that I have the primary issue with, that's all. And the as I call it, point of supervision. Generally, By the Glass is within visual supervision potential of the point of sale, and a substantial portion of this is nowhere near within point of sale supervision or capacity for supervision. In fact, you'd have to go through the bush area, or you'd have to put up a lot of cameras all over the place to be able to see anybody on the site. So that's all. That's where it is. I don't have an issue with By the Glass. It was just the magnitude of the size of it. That's my only concern, and having people have given me comments at other locations relative to wineries and By the Glass.
Okay, thank you. I will go to our planner, our new planner, by the way, is having her first council meeting with us. Ms. Dusling, I believe you've been in consultation with the proprietors about on this event. Any comments you would like to bring to council?
Thank you through the mayor. It's nice to be here today, by the way. Yes, the planning team has had some consultation with Sons and Daughters Winery. We've recently been out to the site. We know that they have future plans. They're working towards conformity, and it meets the current zoning. So we're okay with the resolution as outlined today.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for that. Any other comments on this item? Okay, and not seeing any. Oh, excuse me. I got a frog in my throat today. Any other items? Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I wanted to comment on 12.3.8, and that is the potential for transit enhancement and the request that we made by motion. And we received a number of comments about fares and things, and I wanted to say thank you to the committees and for the council for considering these things, because these are very helpful to us. We launched our new program on the July 2nd with the specialized transit with mixed results, and it turned out the demand is so high for this service in the region and in the town that we just didn't have enough vehicles, enough capacity. So as of last Monday, the capacity was doubled just because people were confident enough to speak about what the issues were. So now we have doubled the number of transit vehicles that for the specialized transit, which is also known as paratransit. And we've also doubled the number of vehicles on demand, and which was done pretty fast, and that's like a month and a half. But we did have some problems with missed times and not being able to make appointments and things. But I believe that a lot of those things are corrected now, and it's basically because of the feedback we got from the public. So thank you.
Excellent. So thank you for bringing that up. I didn't have it circled on mine. You and I visited that lady in Thorold,
Yep.
and that was her main concern, was her husband had a stroke and getting him back and forth on the weekend. And yeah, that's great news that they've doubled that service.
Yeah.
Have you got in touch with that lady again, or probably not, but that's fine.
The fact is, I forgot her name. So.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up on my email.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Okay, excellent, but yeah, good news. That's, and how are they handling this to double their size within the budget? Is that?
Well, that's going to be the topic of discussion and our next transit meeting.
Okay, excellent. Everything has a price, but
Well, I
this was-
expect the price to go down, actually,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you for bringing that good news out, Counselor. Any other items, consent agenda items? I do have one before we do the pulled. Again, I go to my Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr. Again, sorry for the no heads up. I just thought about this when I was at my desk this morning. The culvert on Church Street that was replaced with another square culvert. When I saw that culvert, I've seen it how many years, I always thought that when that was going to be replaced, it would just naturally be replaced with a steel culvert. So can you tell this council why, and because I've seen it up in Kitchener, they do indeed still use square culverts, but what's the engineering basis to go square, which obviously must be a lot more work and total cost as opposed to just digging that up and rolling a steel culvert in there? Can you tell us what the engineering thoughts are behind that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so it's the Church Street culvert, which is located just north of Chandler Road,
Yes.
currently being undertaken. So that was an existing concrete cast-in-place culvert. When we looked at replacements for that culvert, there was a design assignment issued, RFP issued. It was awarded Dallas Engineering. They're a very reputable structural engineering firm. I don't know the exact details, but they would have taken into account the soil bearing capacity, the hydraulic capacity of the culvert, as well as the cover, and most likely it was the amount of cover over top of the existing structure which would dictate what type of structure would be put in place. Arch culverts require more cover than a structural concrete box culvert, so that's most likely the reason. I don't have the exact answer. I can get that for you, but
No, that's
to the
fine.
best of my ability and knowledge, that's what I would consider would be taken into account when they did that design.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The top of that box is well level with the road, so you'd have to go down quite a far, a lot deeper if you're going to put a culvert in there. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any other consent agenda items to be discussed? Not seeing any, I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a motion put forth by Councillor Wing, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the August 14th, 2024 council agenda be received, and the recommendations contained therein be approved, save and accept item 12.3.2. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any other discussion?
Any other discussions? I'm not seeing any. I have to go back one step and thank the Treasury Department for again being one of the first to file the FIR. I forget, you're either the first or you're the top 15 in the province or something. Any words on that, please?
To you, Mr. Mayor, it was just a great team effort. So I just want to give credit to my team.
Excellent. Yeah, we've led the way for, 4 or 5 years now. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, we have.
Okay, thank you for your work and your department's work. Thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to the item which has been lifted, which is the Q2 2024 Public Works Quarterly Report. And the motion put forth is being put forth by Councillor Wing, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. The motion that was attached to that is be it resolved that the Q2 2024 Public Works Department report be received for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
The Public Works Department and I have had many discussions about this issue. The statement that was made in the report says property owners are increasingly declining to maintain boulevards fronting their properties. To the director, these are the 3 questions I have. Does this apply to residential, commercial, and development properties? Define the total estimated costs incurred by the town to mow these boulevards, and how do other municipalities handle the boulevards fronting owners' properties? To the director.
To the director?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I may defer some of these answers to Ryan Cook, our Manager of Operations and Public Works. The 3 questions that can be answered. I believe the majority of the boulevards that we undertake cutting are with respect to residential as well as development properties that have not yet been assumed. With respect to costs, I think Ryan can comment a little bit more on the level of effort that we provide to cut the boulevards and what the frequency is of those. I believe a lot of that is also contracted service that we use to do that work. And sorry, the third?
How do other municipalities handle maintaining the boulevards fronting owners' properties?
Yes, so that answer I don't have off the top of my head. I'd like to do some research on that, report back to council on what other municipalities do. I know municipalities handle the situation in different ways, and we can bring back some options for council's consideration with respect to that. At this time, I'll turn it over to Ryan if he wants to comment on the costs and what our level of effort is at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Cook, please.
On a monthly, get that? Sorry, through the mayor. Basically, the growing season's about 6 months in this in the town of Pelham, somewhere between mid-April to mid-October. The number of properties that we mow changes from time to time. There's about 13 perennial properties that we're maintaining the boulevard for right now. Those are a mix of residential, commercial, and development properties. The number swells depending on complaints that we receive through bylaw, so it can be up to about 20 properties a month. The cost for the department is somewhere around $4,000 a month between staff time and contractor work. The reason this is a concern for us is I generally lose 2 days of mowing my mowing crew, and when we're off doing things that maybe could be someone else's responsibility, I can't do the other work that the majority of the public want me to maintain. So there's a bit of a cost for our contractor, and there's also a staff cost. And while we're doing these things, we're not doing the other things that we're expected to do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. To Councilor Hildebrand?
From your perspective, have you heard what other municipalities do? I know the director said he's going to investigate it, but have you, from your past experience, known how other municipalities handle this?
To Mr. Cook?
Yeah, it's through the mayor. It is, the director's correct. There's a number of ways that other municipalities do take care of this. There's usually, and we've kind of canvassed around a few informally, but it's either through a nuisance bylaw or similar to the Clean Yards bylaw, but there's an apportionment of the boulevard maintenance requirement to the abutting property owner. Some people call it a buffer strip. Some people use a 90-degree to municipal road allowance to define what that is. So there is a number of different ways to do it, and we would have to put that together and bring a report forward.
Thank you. Councilor?
Thank you. I'd like to propose a resolution or an amendment to the resolution that council direct staff to prepare a report regarding maintenance of town boulevards fronting properties, its impact on staff, time and financial consideration, and potential options moving forward.
Okay, thank you. That's a motion you want to put forward?
An amendment, yes.
Oh, an amendment, and we do have a seconder? Yeah, okay, excellent. Okay, to the clerk?
Thank you. Therefore, the amendment is being brought forth by Councilor Hildebrand, seconded by Councilor Niznik. It would be to receive the report for information, but to also bring a report back to council with the items that Councilor Hildebrand has requested. On the floor for the discussion on the amendment.
Okay, on the amendment and on discussions? Councilor Wink.
So either through you, Mr. Mayor, to either the director or Mr. Cook, the cost to do the boulevards, we're all obligated to take care of our own boulevards and whatever. So whatever you cut that is owned by someone, is that cost of that cut added to the tax roll?
To go to the director, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the boulevard that we're talking about is town-owned land.
Okay,
It is town-owned land, it's not private property.
okay, thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. So if I may ask a question of the director, so the past practice then is private citizens have been looking after town land and expected to look after town land. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the past practices have been that the adjacent owners would maintain the boulevards.
Okay.
Town-owned land, that's correct. There's nothing in a bylaw which states that they must do that, but it's expected, or it's the majority of people would maintain the boulevard in front of their properties.
Yes. To the CAO?
If I may. This has been a point of pain everywhere I've drawn a paycheck, and there is considerable, it's actually more a legal issue than it is a public works operations issue. And you see the town solicitor nodding her head quite aggressively. So we both have very strong feelings about this, informed by the ways we've made a living. So we'd be very happy to comply with the motion. I can tell you there'll either be a companion closed session legal report, or, in fact, that's the most likely outcome. And if it's acceptable, we'd like to come back in Q4 because it's a very reasonable motion and it's something for very good public policy reasons you should want an answer to. But there is a lot here, and right now, all of the questions are just floating around the public works component of it, and the much larger component is the legal piece, and it's not close. So with that, I'd like to suggest we've heard you, we'll write a report, please allow us to do that. Maybe there's not much point in further inquiry right now. We understand the motion's clear, or the friendly amendment's clear. And if you give us the freedom of Q4, we can work it in. We're absolutely happy to provide some coherent answers and advice and to give you some policy options on how we proceed.
Councillor Halberman?
Totally acceptable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. To the clerk.
Thank you. I have added the Q4 notation, and we would just be looking for a vote on the amendment.
Okay, thank you. So on the amendment, all those in favor? See none opposed, the amendment carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That now brings us to the main motion as amended, which is receiving the report for information and for directing staff to prepare the report. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the main motion amended? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, amended motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to your first staff report for requiring action. And I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-016, Clerks, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, JAC, 2024 to 2026 proposal, and that Council approve the 2024 to 2026 proposal to coordinate AODA compliance for 2024 to 2026 with the Harrington Group Limited at the cost of $10,000 per year, and that the town clerk be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the said agreement for the next regular meeting of council. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or discussion on this item? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed, motion carries.
Okay, yes, I will let them know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're on our next item, which is the 14.2.2 soccer field maintenance report. Councillor Hildebrandt is leaving and vacating the council chambers as he declared a conflict of interest on this item. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that council receive report 2024-0179 soccer field maintenance report for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Thank you. Any discussion on this report? Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. I appreciate the report put together by Ryan. It's well written. A couple of points that I noticed relative to it, that one was that there was no indication of financial support from the Pelham Soccer Association or identification relative to what they would contribute. Hopefully we can get some contributions if there's increased maintenance that's required. The second one was, when I read through, was talking, would be consistency of notification of groups of access dates in the springs comparable to other municipalities. I think that's been a bone of contention in the past, and that people want on the fields much earlier than other municipalities, which has resulted in a lot of other unfortunate situations for Ryan and others to, Mr. Cook, I'm sorry, to deal with. So I think that somehow that if we can have that delineated would be advantageous. And the third one was what I call my homemade option, was that there would be what I'm calling the on-site repair option, which I think all of these soccer fields I've discussed with you. I think an opportunity is to create a, quote, it sounds really bad, but a pile of dirt located in the corner of the soccer field, such that we were hearing a lot of discussion relative to divots and other things, having a small, rather than having to bring in just to do small amounts, having a reservoir there, staff abilities to respond to holes in the ground. Councillor Wink has noted in the past, as well as I've played on a lot of soccer fields with bare spots. Yes, the best time to deal with the bare spots is often either late fall or early in the spring before people get on it. I think in the short term that we look at creating, fixing of the divots or the holes with soil that's located on site is probably the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to mitigate some of the complaints that may have been received in the past without creating undue havoc for a lot of people. So those are the only three things that I have relative to that report. And hopefully, like I say, I try and think like golfers on the golf course are given sand on their golf carts to fill in a divot. Well, that's because they have the sand on the cart and they can fill it easily. Then somebody doesn't have to drive around and do it. Well, similarly, doing this at each of our sports field, and even be for the baseball diamonds off the playable area, a protected spot with it. Pretty simple. We did that years ago when I was involved at Centennial Park and others. We fixed a lot of stuff ourselves with what was available rather than expecting somebody else to do it for us. So sometimes, I bet you the soccer people, if they had a point where they can repair some things quickly on their own, they'd be quite happy to do it and not have to delay and wait for a lot of things. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask the Director of Public Works, any comments on the comments of Councilor Kerr?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll flip this one over to Ryan as well. He can speak more soundly on the operations end of things and where that stockpile could be.
Yeah. Mr. Cook, any comments to be made on the suggestions of Councilor Kerr?
Yeah, through the mayor. So have continuing discussions with the Pelham Soccer Club about the donation amount. They weren't able to commit to a certain dollar factor when I did meet earlier in the preparation of the report, just based on the fact that they do need to go to the board and that they need board support to do that. So we will continue to work with them for some financial report or for financial help to do some of the maintenance. There are the three maintenance options within the report, and that's the aeration, overseeding, and fertilization. Those are typical field maintenance activities that everyone else is sort of doing. Our operating budget currently doesn't support those items. The top dressing is really the most expensive one. That was the $9,000 option to bring in, and it's like 80 tons of topsoil per field to do that. We can just go to a spot repair kind of operation. We still need some budget money to purchase the topsoil, but it wouldn't be the full $9,000. And a portion of that is also equipment rental. So you have to rent like a top dresser, and there is an expense to that as well. Yeah, we could do spot repairs. Field 1 at Centennial Park does need some significant spot repairs to be done. That we can put together a budget that would help us do that without going through the entire thing. If I can get support from the soccer club to do oversee or to top dressing, that's typically a thing that's done in the spring anyway. The trouble with putting a bunch of topsoil on a field in the fall is that the wind actually strips it. So the majority of the damage that gets done through winter is actually through topsoil stripping, and that's exactly what would happen. It would just be a waste of money, ours or theirs. So we do suggest that that's done in the spring. I do have a maintenance standard report coming shortly that explains exactly what we're planning on doing when we do it and how we do it. That should come up in the next few months, I believe. We should have that prepared for you. So, and that will take care of the majority of things that Councilor Kerr just spoke about.
Okay, thank you. May I suggest that for filling the divots, if you don't want it to blow away, come and get some North Pelham clay. That will not blow away.
I could use some of that for some other projects. I might take you up on that.
Any other comments on, Councilor Kerr, any?
No, that's fine, Ryan. I mean, I understand topsoil loss, blah, blah, blah. I mean, but it's minimal relative to the overall situation. And the one other one is that I still have in my mind, I find it mind-boggling that we have complete irrigation systems. And I've traveled all over the peninsula, and there's not many fields that have complete irrigation systems set out. I recognize at the beginning, but being a kid growing up in Fenwick, and playing on all the sports field in Fenwick forever, they were never irrigated at any time. In fact, it was cutting the grass more often than anything. I'm just thinking back to the blowout and the washouts and other things. So maybe it's time to look at mothballing the irrigation system and not creating our own problems sometimes by having a failure and then finding it at that point. It's just, I found that amazing. Because Niagara Falls, Lincoln, all the other ones I went to, they didn't have irrigation systems. So I'm still amazed that there is one at Centennial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other comments on the report? Counselor Nisnik.
Yes, thank you for putting it together. I think the outline that you've created is a good one. I would encourage you to continue to work with the soccer club because they have indicated that they would be able to financially support. They wanted to hire their own contractor, but I think they realize that that's not feasible for our town, so they're certainly willing to find some funds to support the maintenance of the fields. And I think the plan that you have in place makes sense, and I look forward to the next report that you have created, which will give a clearer outline of how we can get the fields back. One of my big concerns is the amount of weeds, so certainly I hope the weed intervention will be a priority as well, but I'm certainly able to support the motion that's before us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries. And we could now ask Councilor Hildebrand to join us.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, and there he is. You're psychic. You're psychic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that Councillor Hildebrand has returned to council chambers. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that council receive report 2024-0173, Corporate Services for Information, and that council approve the town of Pelham entering into an electricity hedging with local authority services, LAS, effective January 1st, 2025, after final review from the town solicitor, and that council approve option number 2 at 50% of all accounts for electricity hedging. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. After reviewing the report, any questions or comments on this report? And I'm waiting patiently for you to put your hand up, Councilor Hurtowitz. Oh, Councilor Nisnik.
Oh, yes, so I'm just wondering if maybe one of our fellow councillors who's very adept at the hydro and electricity portfolio could just expand a little bit and give us a little bit more information about the hedging of things.
Councilor Hildebrand, I believe she was talking of yours.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
And through you. Yes, I'm a firm supporter of this. I think the report is fairly comprehensive. And what I'd like to do is talk a little about going forward, because we have hedged the natural gas accounts. And I think it's important to know whether it's had any effect on the services in the Corporate Services Division. And I'd like the director to comment on that, and then I'll make further comments with regards to hedging of electricity.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we haven't had any issues at all.
That's great news, because obviously things change a little bit. And the last thing you want to do is to go into a program and have something that's working well affected by something you did that you thought would be perfect and wouldn't influence staff. Now, where it's going to change for staff significantly is come January of next year, because when you hedge electricity, what happens is the LAS have a program called the Energy Planning Tool, and that's the planning tool we use to load up all our data, because prior to this, the staff have had to load all the data from both of our 17 gas accounts and our 40 electric accounts, monthly bills, into a spreadsheet which gets input into this program, which gets put into the Energy Star program that gets reported to the government. And effective in 2025, that has to be done on a yearly basis. So we're looking forward to, we've linked the gas accounts, we have to link the gas account to the address, and that's been done. So automatically, all this data for gas will be automatically loaded into the program, and that will take away this onerous task for staff of loading in the data. With electricity hedging, the same benefit will occur. I know that the LAS say there's going to be some savings with regards to electricity hedging, and I'm not that concerned about that cost as a time saving there will be for hedging. I can tell you with gas hedging, so far for the months of January, February, and March, the report that we've received from LAS through Edison Energy, and that the manager is Mike Parks. For the first 3 months, January, February, and March, we beat the market. For the next 3 months, we didn't beat the market. But in the end, every year at the end of the year, they'll give us a financial report, and we have price stability through hedging. And at the end of the year, they'll give us a report card on how we're doing. They'll make recommendations for you. It's like a personal financial advisor advising you how your accounts are doing and what you should do going forward. And they manage millions of dollars of assets through this portfolio. And it's through the AMO LAS program, which we're able to join them in the hedging program. When you look at organizations like Niagara College or the casinos and all that, they all hedge. We tried to hedge with gas through Enbridge. We don't have enough. We tried to hedge through Shell, who the Niagara College use. We still aren't big enough. All our consumption, both in electricity and gas, is not large enough to be able to hedge. So I think we've taken a very efficient, conservative starting approach. And that's why I concur with a 50% hedge. It's conservative, and we have price stability, and it's a two-year commitment, and we'll see where we go from there. But I think it's excellent as far as budgeting. It'll save an enormous effort by staff in putting in data, which to me is considerable. Reading gas bills is pretty good because you're just dealing with cubic meters, but reading electricity bills, because you got the actual kilowatts, you got the adjusted kilowatts, and there's a lot of stuff in between there. That's not an easy task for staff to get it right, and you're not doing it all the time. You know, it's an error-prone process in my view.
So, Councilor, if I may ask a question.
Sure.
So now, instead of doing 40 accounts, it's just one number you got to put in. Is that what you're saying?
No, LAS will automatically input all that data into the energy plan program.
Okay.
So all the data is input automatically.
Okay.
It's not, the only thing we have to do is, once we join the hedging program, we'll have to coordinate those address with the account number. That's all we have to do.
Okay, thank you.
Once.
Yep, thank you. Do you want to pause for questions? It seems I interrupted you.
I'm good.
Does any other councilor have questions? Oh, go ahead. Oh, you done?
All I'm going to say is we get a report card at the end of the year as to how we've done on both programs. So we'll know how good our decision was. But the staff time saving to me is the big bonus.
Okay. Excellent. Any additional comments from the treasurer?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say that when I was at Niagara College, we have always hedged both the gas, electricity, and done very well. So I'm happy to see that the town has a way to do this with the LAS program. And I do want to thank Councilor Hildebrand and the Utility Sustainability Committee for all their work on this, looking at this on behalf of staff and providing their expertise. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that input. Any other questions, either to staff or to councilors? Councilor Kirk.
Really, I'm just adding that in reading the staff recommendation and the resolution where they're going for option 2, I'm quite comfortable with that as listed. I realize it's not the greatest dollar savings, but it also has the higher risk attached to it. So we're kind of going down the middle, which is fine with me. I'm okay with that. So I'm supportive as it's written.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'd be looking for the vote then.
Okay, so, and then we will just, because it's written into the report, we just automatically go with the option 2.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and without any other comment, call the vote. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next motion on the floor is being put forth by Councillor Eckhart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-175 Station Street Extension Detailed Design and Development Charge Refund Agreement for information, and that Council direct the Mayor and Clerk to execute the development charges refund agreement on behalf of the town. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the report? Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. One of the comments made in there is that the trees that were taken down will be replaced by red oak and pin oak tree species. And we've got this big brochure about oak wilt, the dangers of oak wilt. Is there an issue with these trees being planted with regards to oak wilt, since that's a endangered species and is a problem to the director?
To the Director of Public Works, perhaps?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the oak trees do very well in these conditions. If they're done responsibly and properly, you can mitigate the impacts of oak wilt. I did speak with Shannon LaRock regarding this submission, and I also spoke with Ryan. Ryan can speak, Mr. Cook can speak more to the technical aspects behind the plantings, but the way the planting plan shows, and if you keep them far enough apart, then you mitigate those impacts. We're okay with that. Ryan, do you want to comment on the planting itself?
To Mr. Cook, please.
Yeah, through the mayor, risk of oak wilt on a boulevard tree is, I want to say, relatively easy to mitigate. They're a lot easier to take care of oak wilt on a boulevard tree than it would be in a woodlot. But it's not so much that the tree, we're planting the variety of tree, it's the spacing in between, and then the number of different tree species. So we want to have a diverse tree species. We certainly don't want a monoculture of these things, but there is really not much risk in having the odd pin oak. They're a very good boulevard tree. They do well. So we're not that, and there's something wrong with every tree. So we don't want to restrict a single species because of that. And then also, if they are under attack, it's better to have more of them than less. So it really isn't an issue for us as long as they're not planted in a giant row and there's a monoculture. That's where we run into problems.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Councillor?
It just seems to me if oak is a problem, why plant oak trees? But I'm sure we have a colleague down here, Councillor Kerr, that may be an expert on this.
Okay, Councillor Kerr, any comments?
Yeah, I heard one time an expert is a drip under pressure. The comment, what I noticed in there as well was the fact that oaks were included. I think it's highlighting that you can ensure that they're not the dominant species in there. It also says revise the tree planting species to include. So there's also other tree species that are eligible for going in. I think the part is to make sure that we are not in a monoculture situation, but it would be highly encouraged that the oaks would not dominate in the situation. So I think that's probably more important than the fact that they're there. Yes, it's a little bit of a flag, but we're aware of it, but it's also not going to be, I think that's where it comes into working with the developer, saying in maybe 1 in 10, 1 in 15, when you start to think of things, those ratios are pretty good for working with. But if you get into like 2 out of 3, no, that's going to be a problem with oak.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes, thank you so much for that comment, because I'm reminded of the subdivision that I live in, which is probably 25 years old. And there's a lot of predominant oak trees in there. And it would be a shame if the oak wilt really did attack those trees.
Yes, yep, exactly. And again, when the trees get planted, the planter, the developer, they're obligated to look after them for a certain number of years, or is that our responsibility as soon as they're in the ground? How does that work, if I could? To the director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the developer is responsible for the health and growth of those trees. Shannon, do you want to comment on the exact time period? I believe it's 2 years.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There is a requirement for monitoring of these plantings for a period of 5 years.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Good to know. Thank you. Any other questions on the report? Not seeing any. Oh, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'd be looking for the vote.
Yep, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? See none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That now brings us to the presentation and consideration of bylaws. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. 1, bylaw number 52, 2024, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 4481, 2022, as amended for lands on the south side of Canberra Road and north side of Daleview Drive, legally described as part of Block U, Plan 717, and part of Lot 37, Plan 722, in the town of Pelham, Regional Municipality of Niagara, from the residential multiple 2 RM2 zone to the R2 165 residential 2 165 and RM1 166 residential multiple 1 to 166 zones, Canberra Estates, 82 to 90 Canberra Road, file number AM 02-2024. 2, bylaw number 53, 2024, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement with Sterling Realty Niagara, Inc. for the refund of development charges relating to the construction of Station Street from Port Robinson Road to Walker Road. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Council Olson?
I'd like to divide the motion, please.
Okay, thank you. Vote separately on 1 and 2.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on the bylaws? Not seeing any. I'll turn to the clerk.
3, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Therefore, council will vote on the first bylaw, which is the bylaw relating to Canberra Estates. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, so on the first bylaw, any discussion? Council Olson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll be voting no to this because of the intention of removing the dwelling places, the low-income dwelling places on the property that exist, and I voted no in the last meeting, and this is consistent with what I will do today as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments before we call the vote? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And all those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now we'll be on our second bylaw, and this is the bylaw regarding the refund of development charges.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on bylaw number 2 that we're discussing? Not seeing any. All those in favor? So I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to our resolution to move in camera. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider a matter under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as follows. E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality. 1 item, cannabis. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. On the motion of moving in camera, all those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you could give the Clerk's Department just a moment to close the door and turn off our streaming. Thank you.